You know that feeling when you're deep in sleep, dreaming about something peaceful, and suddenly you hear a sound that jolts you awake? Not a gentle knock. Not a doorbell. But the sound of someone violently kicking your front door like they're trying to break into a bank vault? That's exactly what happened to me at 4 in the morning on a Tuesday. 4 a.m., folks. The hour when even the moon is thinking about calling it quits. The hour when the only things awake should be night shift workers, insomniacs, and apparently HOA Karens with a God complex. My name is Marcus, and I'm a K9 handler.
Oh,
I work with police dogs, train them, live with them, and honestly, they're more family to me than most humans I know. I've got 2 German Shepherds, Rex and Luna. These aren't your average pet store puppies. These are professionally trained protection dogs. They can smell trouble from a mile away, and they don't take kindly to threats. But let me back up a little because this story doesn't start at 4 a.m. It starts 3 months earlier when I moved into this seemingly perfect suburban neighborhood called Maplewood Estates. Beautiful houses, manicured lawns, white picket fences, the whole American dream package. What they don't tell you in the real estate brochure is that with every perfect neighborhood comes a homeowners association, and with every HOA comes at least one Karen who treats the rulebook like it's the Holy Bible. Enter Patricia Hensworth. 50-something, always dressed like she's about to attend a country club luncheon even when she's checking her mailbox, and the self-appointed president of the Maplewood Estates HOA. From day one, Patricia had issues with me. My grass was half an inch too long. My mailbox was the wrong shade of black. My car was parked 3 inches over the invisible line only she could see. But her biggest issue? My dogs. Those beasts don't belong in a family neighborhood, she told me during our first encounter, her lips pursed so tight they looked like a dried prune. This is a community of families, Mr. Rivers. Not a kennel. I smiled politely, the way you do when you know someone's about to become a recurring problem in your life. Ma'am, Rex and Luna are professionally trained K9 officers. They're better behaved than most kids I see running around here. That comment didn't go over well. Her face turned the color of a ripe tomato, and she stomped off muttering about ordinances and violations. Over the next 3 months, Patricia made it her personal mission to make my life difficult. She sent me violation notices for things that weren't even violations. She showed up unannounced to inspect my property. She even tried to get my dogs classified as dangerous animals with the city, which went absolutely nowhere because Rex and Luna had more certifications than she had complaints. But Patricia wasn't the type to give up. She was the type to escalate. And escalate she did. It was a Monday night, well, technically early Tuesday morning. I'd worked a 12-hour shift training a new batch of K9 recruits, and I was exhausted. Rex and Luna were tired too. We'd all crashed hard around 10 p.m. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor, and the dogs slept in the living room by the front door. It was their spot. Their territory. Anyone who knows anything about trained protection dogs knows you don't mess with their territory. At exactly 4:07 a.m., according to my phone, I heard it. Not knocking. Kicking. Someone was literally kicking my front door with the force of someone trying to knock it off its hinges. My eyes shot open. My heart started pounding. In my line of work, you learn to go from 0 to alert in seconds. Then I heard it. The barking. Rex and Luna were going absolutely ballistic downstairs. Their barks weren't playful. They weren't warning barks. These were full-on intruder alert barks that could wake up the entire neighborhood. I grabbed my phone, pulled on a shirt, and started heading downstairs. My hand was already reaching for my phone to dial 911 because in what universe does someone kick down your door at 4 in the morning with good intentions? But then I heard the voice. A shrill, entitled, unmistakable voice screeching through my front door. Patricia. My blood went from cold to boiling in half a second. I stopped mid-step on my staircase, trying to process what I was hearing. Was she seriously trying to break into my house at 4 in the morning? And what master key was she talking about? I reached the bottom of the stairs. Rex and Luna were at the door, teeth bared, hackles raised, in full protection mode. They knew something was wrong. They could sense it. And honestly, so could I. I grabbed both dogs by their collars, holding them back, and looked through the peephole. Sure enough, there she was. Patricia Hensworth, in a bathrobe and slippers, holding up what looked like a random key, her face twisted in fury and self-righteousness. "Patricia, what are you doing?" I shouted through the door. "I'm conducting an emergency inspection. The HOA has received complaints about noise violations and improper animal housing. You are required by law to let me in." I almost laughed. Almost. But I was too angry. This woman had officially lost her mind. Let me explain something about HOAs to those of you lucky enough to never deal with one. Homeowners associations are supposed to maintain property values and keep neighborhoods looking nice. That's the theory. In practice, they're often run by people with way too much time on their hands and a desperate need for control. But even in HOA world, there are rules. And one of those rules is that they absolutely, positively, cannot enter your private property without permission. Not without a warrant. Not without a court order. And definitely not at 4 a.m. with a so-called master key. But Patricia either didn't know that, or more likely, didn't care. "Patricia," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm even though every instinct in me wanted to unleash the fury of 1,000 suns, "there is no master key. You don't have any legal right to enter my property. And if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." "I am the law here," she screamed back, her voice cracking with hysteria. "I have been president of this HOA for 7 years. I know the rules better than anyone. Now open this door before I..." She kicked the door again. Bang. Rex let out a bark so deep and menacing it could have been mistaken for a lion's roar. Luna joined in with a series of sharp, aggressive barks that echoed through the house. These dogs weren't playing. They were in full guard mode, and if that door opened, Patricia was going to learn a very painful lesson about the difference between Chihuahuas and trained German Shepherds. I pulled out my phone and started recording. If this was going to escalate, I wanted evidence. I opened my Ring doorbell app and sure enough, it had been recording the entire thing. Patricia kicking my door. Patricia screaming about master keys. Patricia making threats. "Patricia, I'm recording this," I announced clearly. "You are trespassing on my property. You are attempting to illegally enter my home. And you are disturbing the peace. I'm giving you one chance to leave before I call the cops." There was a pause. Through the peephole, I could see her face cycling through emotions: anger, confusion, realization, then back to anger. You can't record me without my consent," she sputtered. I almost laughed. Actually, in this state, I can record anyone on my property without their consent. Especially someone who's trying to break in. Now leave. But Patricia wasn't done. Oh no. She had come here on a mission, and she was determined to see it through, logic and law be damned. "I received a complaint," she shouted. "A complaint that you're running an illegal kennel. That you have dangerous animals. That you're violating at least 7 HOA codes." "From who?" I challenged. "That's confidential." "Convenient. Let me guess, you filed the complaint yourself?" Silence. Bingo. This is a classic Karen move, by the way. File an anonymous complaint against yourself, then use that complaint as justification to harass someone. It's like being the prosecutor, judge, and jury in your own made-up court system. "Look," I said, trying one more time to be reasonable even though this woman deserved zero reasonableness, "my dogs are legally registered. They're professionally trained. They're not dangerous unless you're a threat. And right now, Patricia, you're acting like a threat. So for the last time, leave my property." "I will not," she screamed, and I swear I heard her try to put the key into my lock. My lock. The lock that her random key obviously didn't fit. That's when I heard another voice. A male voice. Tired and exasperated. "Patricia." What the hell are you doing? I looked through the peephole and saw Gerald Hensworth, Patricia's husband, jogging across my lawn in pajama pants and a t-shirt. He looked like a man who'd been woken up, realized his wife was missing, and immediately knew she was somewhere causing chaos. Gerald. Don't interfere. I'm conducting official HOA business. Patricia snapped at her own husband. At 4 in the morning? By kicking someone's door? Have you lost your mind? I have a master key. Oh, this was getting good. I almost felt bad for Gerald. Almost. But he'd married this tornado of entitlement, so he'd made his choices. But the handbook says. Patricia's voice was losing its confidence now, the reality starting to crack through her delusion. The handbook says we can issue violations and fines. It doesn't say we can break into people's houses like the Gestapo. I decided it was time to open the door. Just a crack. Just enough to show my face and my phone, which was still recording everything. Gentlemen. And I use that term loosely when it comes to your wife, Gerald, I said coolly. I've got the last 10 minutes recorded on multiple cameras. I've got Patricia trespassing, attempting illegal entry, making threats, and disturbing the peace. Now you can either take her home, or I can let the police escort her home in handcuffs. Your choice. Gerald grabbed Patricia's arm. We're leaving. Now. Patricia, move. But I'm not done. Yes, you are. For a man in his 60s wearing Bugs Bunny pajama pants, Gerald had surprising authority in that moment. He physically turned Patricia around and started marching her back toward their house 3 doors down. But Patricia, being Patricia, had to have the last word. This isn't over, Mr. Rivers. I'll have those beasts removed. I'll have you fined. I'll have you. Patricia, shut up. Gerald's voice echoed through the quiet neighborhood. And just like that, they were gone. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart still racing. Rex and Luna were still on high alert, pacing back and forth, their training telling them the threat hadn't fully passed. I knelt down and gave them both scratches behind the ears. Good dogs, I whispered. Very good dogs. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. Rex licked my face. Luna pressed her head against my chest. These dogs had my back, always. They'd sensed the threat before I'd even fully woken up. They'd responded exactly as their training dictated. And most importantly, they'd stayed controlled. That's the difference between a trained protection dog and an aggressive animal. Control. I checked my Ring camera footage. Crystal clear. Every second of Patricia's 4 a.m. meltdown captured in glorious high definition. Her kicking my door. Her screaming about master keys. Her refusing to leave. And best of all, Gerald showing up and admitting that there were no master keys, that Patricia was acting illegally, and physically removing her from my property. This was golden. But I wasn't naive. I knew this wasn't over. Patricia wasn't the type to slink away in shame. She was the type to double down, to escalate, to bring in reinforcements. So I needed to be prepared. At 6 a.m., after I'd calmed down enough to think straight, I did 3 things. First, I called my lawyer. Yeah, I have a lawyer. When you work in law enforcement and own trained police dogs, you learn real quick that you need legal protection. His name was David Chen, and he specialized in property law and HOA disputes. He'd seen everything. Marcus, it's 6 in the morning, David answered, his voice groggy. David, I need you. HOA President tried to break into my house at 4 a.m. claiming she had a master key. There was a pause. Then I heard David sit up. She what? I sent him the video footage while we talked. I could hear him watching it, and I swear I heard him start laughing. Oh Marcus, this is incredible. She's committed like 4 crimes here. Trespassing, attempted illegal entry, harassment, disturbing the peace. And she recorded herself doing it because she's on your Ring camera. So what do? You send me everything. Every violation notice she's ever sent you. Every interaction you've had. Every email, every letter, every complaint. And then we hit her with a restraining order and a lawsuit so big she'll need a second mortgage to pay the legal fees. Music to my ears. Second, I filed a police report. I called the non-emergency line, explained the situation, and an officer came out around 7 a.m. to take my statement. He watched the video footage, shook his head in disbelief, and wrote up a report for attempted trespassing and harassment. We've had issues with HOA disputes before, the officer told me, but this is next level. She's lucky your dogs were controlled. If they'd been aggressive, she could have been seriously hurt, and it would have been her own fault. My dogs only act on command or legitimate threat, I explained. They're trained professionals. I can tell. Most dogs would have torn through that door. Yours waited for your command. That's impressive. He gave me a copy of the report and told me to call immediately if Patricia showed up again. Third, I posted about it. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Marcus, isn't that petty? Isn't that stooping to her level? Maybe. But you know what? I was tired. I was angry. And I wanted my neighbors to know what kind of person was running their HOA. I didn't post the video publicly. That would have been too much. But I did post in our neighborhood Facebook group, a simple message. To my neighbors in Maplewood Estates, at 4:07 a.m. this morning, HOA President Patricia Hensworth kicked my front door repeatedly, claiming she had a master key and demanding entry for an emergency inspection. When I refused, she threatened me and continued attempting entry. Police were contacted, and a report was filed. Please be aware that the HOA does not have master keys to your homes, and no one has the legal right to enter your property without permission, regardless of their position. Stay safe, everyone. I hit post and put my phone down. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Patricia did what? I knew she was crazy, but this is insane. She tried to fine me for having my Christmas lights up 3 days past New Year's. This woman is out of control. Does anyone else feel violated knowing she thinks she can just enter our homes? I'm calling for an emergency HOA meeting. This is unacceptable. The neighborhood was waking up, both literally and figuratively. And Patricia's reign of terror was about to come crashing down. Around 8 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Rivers? This is Janet Moore. I'm on the HOA board. I just saw your post, and I want to apologize on behalf of the board. Patricia's actions were completely unauthorized and illegal. We're holding an emergency meeting tonight, and I can assure you this will be addressed. Thank you, Janet. I appreciate that. Can I ask, do you really have video footage? Multiple angles. Crystal clear. Time-stamped. She sighed. Would you be willing to attend the meeting tonight and show the board? I smiled. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The rest of the day was a blur. I went to work, trained my K-9 recruits, but my mind was on that evening's meeting. By the time I got home around 5 p.m., there were 17 messages in the neighborhood Facebook group, and someone had created a petition to remove Patricia from the HOA board. It already had 43 signatures. The meeting was at 7 p.m. in the community clubhouse. I showed up at 6:55 with my laptop, my phone, a flash drive with backup footage, and a printed copy of the police report. The room was packed. Every seat filled. People standing along the walls. The energy was electric, like everyone had been waiting for this moment for years. And there, sitting at the head table looking like she'd just bitten into a lemon, was Patricia Hensworth. If you've never been to an HOA meeting, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a local government meeting, but pettier. Imagine a courtroom, but with worse coffee. Imagine a family Thanksgiving dinner, but everyone's arguing about fence heights instead of politics. The Maplewood Estates HOA board consisted of 5 people, Patricia as president, Janet Moore as vice president, 2 other board members named Tom and Sheila, and a treasurer named Robert who looked like he regretted every life choice that led him to this moment. Janet called the meeting to order, but before she could even finish her opening statement, Patricia stood up. Before we begin, I want to address the slanderous, defamatory post that was made in our community group this morning, Patricia announced, her voice dripping with fake authority. Mr. Rivers has made false accusations against me, the president of this board, and I demand an immediate apology and retraction. The room erupted. People started shouting over each other. False accusations? I saw the post. He said you tried to break into his house. Did you or didn't you, Patricia? Janet banged a gavel that looked like it came from a child's toy courtroom set. Order! Everyone, please. Patricia, sit down. Marcus, you have the floor. I stood up, opened my laptop, and connected it to the projector screen at the front of the room. Every eye in that clubhouse was on me. Thank you, Janet. I'm going to show you all exactly what happened at 4:07 a.m. this morning, and you can decide for yourselves whether my post was slanderous or simply factual. I played the video. The entire video. 4 minutes of Patricia kicking my door, screaming about master keys, threatening me, and finally being dragged away by her husband who admitted she was wrong. The room was silent except for the audio of Patricia's voice screeching through the speakers. I watched people's faces. Shock. Anger. Secondhand embarrassment. One woman actually covered her mouth in horror. When the video ended, the silence continued for about 5 seconds. Then all hell broke loose. Patricia, have you lost your mind? You tried to break into his house? What master key? We don't have master keys. This is illegal. This is actually illegal. I motioned to remove her from the board immediately. Janet was banging her gavel so hard I thought it might break. Order! Please! Everyone! Patricia's face had gone from red to white to purple. She looked like a cartoon character about to explode. That video is taken out of context, she sputtered. What context? I asked calmly. The context where you kicked my door at 4 in the morning? Or the context where you claim to have a master key that doesn't exist? Or maybe the context where you refuse to leave my property when asked repeatedly? I received a complaint. Patricia shouted, standing up so fast her chair fell backward. A legitimate complaint about noise and illegal animal housing. As president, it is my duty. You filed the complaint yourself, I interrupted. Didn't you? Her face gave her away immediately. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again like a fish gasping for air. That's not. I don't have to disclose. Patricia, Janet said quietly, her voice carrying a weight of disappointment that could crush mountains. Did you file a false complaint so you could harass Marcus? It wasn't false. Those dogs are dangerous. I've seen them. They're beasts. They don't belong in a family neighborhood. They're trained police dogs. Tom, one of the other board members, spoke up for the first time. My brother's a cop. I've met Marcus's dogs. They're better trained than my own kids. A few people laughed. The tension broke slightly. That's not the point. Patricia was losing it now, her voice getting shriller. The point is that I have the authority as president to ensure the safety and standards of this community. And if that means conducting inspections. You don't have that authority, Robert the treasurer said, pulling out a thick binder. I've got the HOA bylaws right here. Section 7, subsection C clearly states that no board member has the authority to enter private property without express written permission from the homeowner. Section 12 states that inspections must be scheduled during reasonable hours with at least 48 hours notice. And Section 19 states that any board member who violates a homeowner's legal rights can be removed from the board immediately with a simple majority vote. Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. You're misreading that. I'm a contract lawyer, Patricia, Robert said flatly. This is literally what I do for a living. You violated at least 3 sections of our own bylaws, not to mention actual criminal law. Janet looked around the room at the board members. I motioned that Patricia Hensworth be removed from her position as HOA President effective immediately, pending a full investigation into her conduct. Seconded, Tom said immediately. All in favor? 4 hands went up. Only Patricia's stayed down. You can't do this. Patricia shrieked. I've been president for 7 years. I've given everything to this community. I've kept property values up. I've maintained standards. You've terrorized people, a voice called out from the crowd. It was an elderly man I'd seen walking his dog sometimes. You fined me $300 because my rose bushes were the wrong color. The wrong color, Patricia. Roses. They're naturally pink. You sent me a violation notice because my daughter drew a hopscotch course in chalk on my driveway, a woman added. She was 6 years old. You tried to ban my son's wheelchair ramp because it wasn't aesthetically consistent with neighborhood standards, another man said, his voice shaking with anger. It was like opening floodgates. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. Story after story of Patricia's petty tyranny, her power trips, her abuse of authority. She'd made enemies of nearly everyone in the neighborhood. Patricia tried to maintain control. She really did. She stood there, gripping the table, her knuckles white, trying to shout over the crowd. But it was useless. The dam had broken, and there was no stopping the flood now. Janet finally got control of the meeting again after about 10 minutes of chaos. Patricia, you need to leave. Now. You're no longer president. You're no longer on this board. And if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll have you escorted out. You can't just. Yes, we can. Robert, just read you the bylaws. Leave, Patricia. For a moment, I thought she might actually flip the table over. Her whole body was shaking with rage and humiliation. But then Gerald appeared at her side. He must have been waiting outside, knowing this was coming. Come on, Pat, he said quietly, gently taking her arm. Let's go home. She jerked her arm away from him but started walking toward the door. As she passed me, she stopped and leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. This isn't over. I smiled. Actually, Patricia, it is. And if you come near my property again, if you contact me in any way, my lawyer will make sure the next meeting you attend is in a courtroom. She stormed out. The door slammed behind her so hard the wall shook. The meeting continued for another hour. Janet was voted in as the new president. They apologized profusely to me and several other homeowners who'd been harassed by Patricia. They announced that they'd be reviewing all violation notices issued in the past 3 years to determine which ones were legitimate and which ones were Patricia's personal vendettas. When I finally left the clubhouse around 9 p.m., at least a dozen neighbors stopped me to shake my hand, thank me, and tell me their own Patricia horror stories. One woman actually hugged me and said, "You're a hero. You have no idea how long we've been waiting for someone to stand up to her." I wasn't a hero. I was just a guy who was tired of being harassed. But I'd take the compliment. Over the next few days, things were surprisingly quiet. No more violation notices appeared on my door. No more Patricia sightings. The neighborhood Facebook group was full of people celebrating the liberation from tyranny, which felt a bit dramatic but also kind of accurate. But I knew Patricia. I knew people like her. They don't just disappear. They regroup. They find new angles. They escalate. Sure enough, exactly 1 week after the HOA meeting, I got a certified letter in the mail. Not from the HOA. From a law firm. My heart sank. I opened the letter and read. Patricia was suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and damage to her reputation. She was claiming that my Facebook post and the video I showed at the HOA meeting had caused her severe psychological harm and destroyed her standing in the community. She was seeking $50,000 in damages. I immediately called David Chen, my lawyer. "She's suing me," I said as soon as he answered. "For what?" Defamation. Emotional distress. She wants $50,000. There was a pause. Then David started laughing. Actually laughing. Oh Marcus, this is the best news I've heard all week. How is this good news? Because she just handed us a gift-wrapped countersuit. Think about it. She's claiming you defamed her by posting the truth. You have video evidence proving everything you said was accurate. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Her case will get thrown out in about 5 seconds, and then we can countersue her for harassment, trespassing, attempted illegal entry, filing a frivolous lawsuit, and emotional distress that you suffered. By the time we're done, she'll be the one paying $50,000. I felt my stress start to dissolve. So we're going to court? Oh yes. And it's going to be glorious. Forward me that letter. I'll draft a response that'll make her lawyer reconsider their career choices. David wasn't kidding. 3 days later, Patricia's lawyer received a 15-page response that systematically destroyed every single claim in her lawsuit, included timestamps of her violations, excerpts from the police report, testimonials from neighbors, the HOA board statement removing her from power, and a countersuit for $75,000 in damages. Apparently, Patricia's lawyer read it, called her, and told her to drop the lawsuit immediately. But Patricia, being Patricia, refused. She was convinced she could win. She was convinced that she was the victim here. She was convinced that her 7 years as HOA president gave her some kind of immunity. She was wrong. The case went to court 6 months later. It wasn't even a trial really. It was a preliminary hearing to determine if Patricia's case had any merit. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 60s who'd probably seen 1,000 petty lawsuits, watched the video footage I'd submitted as evidence. 4 minutes of Patricia kicking my door at 4 a.m. When it finished, the judge took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Mrs. Hensworth, she said slowly, you're suing Mr. Rivers for defamation because he posted a video of you, actually kicking his door at 4 in the morning and attempting to illegally enter his home? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia said confidently. He made me look like a criminal. You looked like a criminal because you were acting like a criminal. Case dismissed. Mr. Rivers, your countersuit will proceed. Mrs. Hensworth, I suggest you get a very good lawyer, because based on this evidence, you're going to need one. The gavel came down. Patricia's face went pale. David leaned over and whispered, and that's how you win. After the judge dismissed Patricia's case and approved our countersuit, things moved surprisingly fast. Patricia's lawyer, who I'm pretty sure was regretting every decision that led to this moment, contacted David within 48 hours to discuss settlement options. They want to settle, David told me over the phone. They know they can't win. The video evidence alone is damning, but combine that with the police report, the HOA board's testimony, and the testimonies from your neighbors? They'd lose badly in court, and they know it. So what are they offering? $20,000, a written apology, and a legally binding agreement that she'll never contact you or come within 100 feet of your property again. $20,000. A written apology. And a restraining order without having to file one separately. It was tempting. It was more than fair. But part of me wanted to go to trial. Part of me wanted Patricia to face the full consequences of her actions. What do you think I should do? I asked David. Honestly? Take the settlement. You've already won, Marcus. She's been removed from the HOA board. Her reputation in the neighborhood is destroyed. She's paying you $20,000 and admitting she was wrong. Going to trial would cost more time, more stress, and yeah, you'd probably win more money, but is it worth it? He was right. I'd made my point. The neighborhood was free of her tyranny. My dogs and I could live in peace. Taking the settlement was the smart move. Okay, I said. Let's take it. Good call. I'll draft the settlement agreement. 1 week later, I received a cashier's check for $20,000 and a letter from Patricia. The letter was clearly written by her lawyer, full of legal language and carefully worded apologies that avoided any real admission of guilt beyond what was absolutely necessary. But at the bottom, in handwriting that looked shaky and forced, was Patricia's signature in one sentence in her own words. "I'm sorry for the distress I caused." It wasn't much. But it was something. The legally binding no-contact agreement was the real prize though. If Patricia came within 100 feet of my property, contacted me directly or indirectly, or made any further complaints about me or my dogs to any organization, she'd be in violation of a court order and could face criminal charges. She was officially out of my life. I posted one final update in the neighborhood Facebook group. "Hi everyone. I wanted to let you all know that the legal situation with the former HOA president has been resolved. We've reached a settlement, and there's now a legal agreement in place ensuring there will be no further issues. I appreciate all the support from this community over the past months. Looking forward to peaceful days ahead. Also, Rex and Luna say thank you for the dog treats some of you have been leaving on our porch. They're officially the most spoiled K9s in the county." The comments flooded in immediately. "Congratulations, Marcus. You earned it. Those pups deserve all the treats. Can you train my dog? He barks at leaves. I'm so glad this is over. The neighborhood feels different now. Better." That last comment stuck with me. The neighborhood did feel different. In the months following Patricia's removal, the whole atmosphere of Maplewood Estates changed. The new HOA board, led by Janet, took a completely different approach. Instead of hunting for violations, they focused on actual community building. They organized block parties. They created a neighborhood watch program that I volunteered to help with, given my law enforcement background. They set up a community garden. The ridiculous violation notices stopped. People stopped being afraid to put up Christmas decorations or paint their front doors or plant flowers that were the wrong color. The neighborhood Facebook group went from being a place where people complained about Patricia to being a place where people actually helped each other. Someone needed a babysitter. Neighbors volunteered. Someone needed help moving furniture. 5 people showed up. Someone's tree fell during a storm. Half the block came out with chainsaws and trucks. It sounds cheesy, I know. But it was real. Patricia's removal didn't just free people from petty tyranny. It reminded everyone that neighborhoods are supposed to be communities, not correctional facilities. As for Rex and Luna, they became neighborhood celebrities. Kids would ask if they could pet them, always with parent supervision, of course. Neighbors would stop by on walks just to say hi. One family asked if I'd bring them to their son's birthday party to demonstrate some basic K9 commands, and it was actually really fun. The dogs loved it. They were trained for protection, but they were also social animals. Having friendly interactions with the neighborhood helped balance out their work mindset. Plus, the treats. So many treats. Gerald, Patricia's husband, actually approached me about 3 months after the settlement. I was in my front yard playing fetch with Rex when he walked up, looking nervous. "Marcus, can I talk to you for a minute?" I called Rex to my side and nodded. "Sure, Gerald. I just wanted to apologize. For Patricia. For everything. I know the settlement included an apology, but I wanted to say it personally. She was out of control, and I should have stopped her sooner." I could see the genuine regret in his eyes. "Gerald, you're not responsible for her actions. But I appreciate the apology. For what it's worth, she's getting help. Therapy." The whole situation was a wake-up call for her. She'd been using the HOA thing as a way to feel important, to feel in control, because other parts of her life felt out of control. Not an excuse, just an explanation. I nodded. "I hope the therapy helps her. I really do. I didn't want to ruin her life, Gerald. I just wanted her to leave me alone. You didn't ruin her life. You gave her a chance to fix it. She just has to take it." We shook hands. Gerald walked away. and I realized that this whole situation had taught me something important. People do crazy things when they feel powerless, and sometimes standing up to them isn't about punishment. It's about boundaries. So here we are. 17 minutes into this story, and you're probably wondering what the big takeaways are. What did I learn from having an HOA Karen kick down my door at 4 in the morning? What wisdom can I share with you if you ever find yourself in a similar situation? Let me break it down. First lesson, document everything. And I mean everything. If I hadn't had that Ring doorbell camera, if I hadn't recorded the interaction on my phone, if I hadn't saved every ridiculous violation notice Patricia sent me, the legal battle would have been much harder. In the age of smartphones and cheap security cameras, there's no excuse not to document harassment. Video doesn't lie. Timestamps don't lie. And when someone's acting crazy, having proof of that craziness is your best defense. Second lesson, know your rights. I'm not a lawyer, but I educated myself on property rights, HOA laws in my state, and tenant protections. I knew that Patricia couldn't legally enter my property. I knew that HOAs have limited authority. I knew what constituted harassment and trespassing. If I hadn't known these things, I might have been intimidated by her fake authority. But knowledge is power, and understanding the law gave me the confidence to stand my ground. Third lesson, stay calm. This one's harder than it sounds. When someone's kicking your door at 4 a.m., when they're screaming threats, when they're making your life miserable, every instinct in your body wants to escalate. You want to yell back. You want to be aggressive. But staying calm, speaking clearly, and refusing to sink to their level is what wins these battles. Patricia wanted me to lose my temper. She wanted me to do something stupid that she could use against me. I didn't give her that satisfaction, and it paid off. Fourth lesson, community matters. I could have fought Patricia alone, but having the support of my neighbors made everything easier. Their testimonies at the HOA meeting, their willingness to share their own stories, their solidarity, it all mattered. If you're dealing with a bully, whether it's an HOA president or a terrible boss or a toxic neighbor, don't isolate yourself. Find allies. Share your story. You'd be surprised how many other people are dealing with the same thing. Fifth lesson, professionals exist for a reason. I hired a lawyer. I called the police. I didn't try to handle everything myself. Yes, it cost money. Yes, it took time. But David Chen's expertise is what turned Patricia's frivolous lawsuit into a settlement in my favor. The police report is what gave my case legal weight. Don't be afraid to bring in professionals when you need them. That's literally what they're trained for. Sixth lesson, pick your battles. I could have pushed for a full trial. I could have tried to get more money, more consequences, more revenge. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, is winning worth the cost? The settlement gave me everything I actually needed, money, an apology, and legal protection from future harassment. Going to trial would have just dragged things out, cost more in legal fees, and prolonged my stress. Sometimes, knowing when to accept victory is just as important as knowing when to fight. And finally, the seventh lesson, dogs are incredible. Okay, this one might be personal bias because I work with K9S, but hear me out. Rex and Luna didn't attack Patricia, even though they could have. They didn't lose control, even though they were trained to detect threats and she was absolutely acting threatening. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, alert me to danger, protect the property, and wait for my command. That's discipline. That's training. And it's a reminder that good training, whether for dogs or humans, is about control and judgment, not just aggression. So where are we now, a year and a half after that crazy night? I'm still living in Maplewood Estates. Still training K9S, Rex and Luna are still my best friends and most reliable coworkers. The neighborhood is thriving under new HOA leadership. Janet's doing a great job as president, focusing on actual community improvement rather than petty violations. Patricia? I don't know. I've seen her around the neighborhood occasionally. She keeps her distance, which is exactly what the settlement requires. I've heard through neighborhood gossip that she's joined a book club in another town and is focusing on personal growth. Good for her, genuinely. I don't wish her harm. I just wanted her out of my life, and I got that. The $20,000 from the settlement went into a fund for K-9 training equipment. I used some of it to upgrade my home security system, more cameras, better lighting, the works. And I donated a chunk to a local animal shelter that specializes in training rescue dogs for police work. Felt like the right thing to do. The neighborhood kids still love Rex and Luna. I've done 3 more birthday party demonstrations, and I'm pretty sure I'm now known as the cool dog guy, which is honestly the best reputation a person can have. And you know what the wildest part is? This whole crazy experience actually made me appreciate my life more. Before Patricia's 4 a.m. door-kicking incident, I was kind of on autopilot. Work, home, train the dogs, sleep, repeat. The conflict, as stressful as it was, reminded me that I have rights worth fighting for. That I have a community worth being part of. That standing up for yourself isn't just about winning, it's about setting boundaries and demanding respect. So if you ever find yourself dealing with an HOA Karen, or any kind of Karen for that matter, remember this: you have more power than you think. You have rights. You have resources. You have the ability to stand your ground without stooping to their level. And if you happen to have 2 trained German Shepherds backing you up, well, that doesn't hurt either. Thanks for sticking with me through this whole story. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about neighborhood drama, K-9 training, and standing up to entitled people. And drop a comment telling me your own HOA horror stories, because I know I'm not the only one. Until next time, stay strong, document everything, and never underestimate the power of a good dog. Rex and Luna say woof. And I say, peace out.